Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Creating Magic Podcast. It is, of course, Steven, the Muggle in Khakis. Really special episode coming for y'all here today. And I wanted to just talk a little bit before we dive in. Some of you may remember that I used to host a different podcast for a little while by myself, the Pin Pod, where I had the greatest pleasure to get to interview different pin makers, pin designers, pin sellers, and pin traders all across the community, both in terms of fandom and in terms of geography. I got to speak with so many amazing people over about 30 episodes. And late last year, I suppose it was, I decided to stop doing the podcast. And the people who were super close to me probably felt it coming. But I never really explained why. I know I put up an Instagram post about it, but I wanted anyone who cares, be that one person, be that five, or be that just myself feeling the need to explain, to hear straight from me, from my voice, a little bit more about what happened. So, I loved doing the podcast. I love getting to hear people's stories and share people's stories. I made some really incredible friends along the way, and I love all of the beautiful artwork, all of the pins that I've collected. But it just became stressful. I learned throughout this process that I don't have the most skill and or patience and or tolerance for a lot of the editing and post-production on podcasts. I learned I was getting more and more frustrated with a lot of just the nitpicky nitty-gritty stuff behind the scenes. And despite the bombastically stupid persona I put up on this podcast all the time, I really am, in some respects, a perfectionist. And if I can't do something to what I believe to be the top of my talent, I don't want to do it at all. And that's kind of the trap I fell into with the Pin Pod. So I really do miss a lot of the amazing creators I was talking with and traders and buyers I was talking with every day. It was so much fun. Pin collecting remains something I am passionate about. I had to take a step away for a couple of months just to kind of clear my head and kind of hit the reset button. But Danny and I talked about it, and one of the things that we're going to do here on Creating Magic over the next handful of months is just kind of intersperse, a handful of my favorite Pin Pod episodes for our Creating Magic listeners. So over the next couple of months, you're going to hear interviews I did throughout 2020 and 2021 with voices and voices you don't yet know. So amazing people like Amy from Witherwings Wares, Stina from Laserbrain Patch Co., Nikki from Sunset Road Co., Dylan, Rawson, and Jeanette from Oddment and Tweak, and probably some more. This community has meant a lot to me, and I really am sad that I decided to step away, but it was the right thing for my mental health. And so soliloquy over and scene. You're about to hear the incredible episode I did with Dylan, Rawson, and Jeanette from Oddment and Tweak. I hope y'all enjoy. And thanks for supporting the Pin Pod, and thanks for, as always, supporting Creating Magic. Hey everyone, this is Steven, aka Muggle in Khakis, aka your podcaster in chief. I am recording this intro on Monday evening. I apologize that this podcast is coming into your ears on Tuesday as opposed to the usual Monday. I think after a week of nonstop streaming of CNN and MSNBC, My very old beleaguered computer just decided it had enough and needed a couple days to rest. So that's what it did for the better part of Sunday and Monday, and it really wouldn't function. So that's all to say that I apologize the podcast is delayed, but I promise you this one is worth the wait. So on today's podcast, which is an incredible conversation that we recorded probably about almost 2 months ago now, I had the just ultimate pleasure of speaking with Dylan, Ross, and Jeanette from Oddment and Tweak. If you don't know who they are, I guarantee you know their work. So without much further ado, I guess if I'm the podcaster in chief, then Jordan, please play Hail to the Pin Pod, and the conversation with Oddment and Tweak awaits on the other side.
Collect them if you wanna, die-struck or enamel. So many different options, but make sure that they're real. The podcast where we talk about pins, it's the Pin Pod. I'll trade you my Goofy for Moana, an ultra-rare Mufasa, a happy birthday cake that Hagrid made for Harry Potter. The podcast where we talk about pins, it's the Pin Podcast where we talk about pins, it's the Pin Podcast where we talk about pins, it's the Pin Pod. Yeah.
So let's introduce the three themselves, the purveyors of fine ornaments and bewitchingly cool enamel pins for the magically inclined. Say hello to the wonderful people behind Oddment and Tweak. Hey, y'all.
Hey. By the way, can I say that's a wonderful tagline? We're stealing that.
Wonderful tagline. I
It's in
believe
our
this
bio.
is
It's in our bio.
No.
Us. You're making it look like you don't work here. Get with the program.
I kind of don't.
Same.
So because I believe this will be the first episode we release where there's multiple guests on the podcast, just to help the listeners out, do we want to go one by one, starting with Jeanette and just introducing ourselves quickly?
Oh, I get to start first. Well, you only really need to start and end with me. No, I'm totally kidding.
Lawrence is very humble.
Right.
I'm very humble. I'll be humble on the podcast. I'm not humble when I text these two. I shouldn't be giving away all my my secrets. But yes, so I'm Jeanette. Dylan is the one who really should be going first. He's the one who has brought us all together in many ways. But you know, I like to give each other, I like to talk about the roles that each of us play. And I like to think that, you know, most or, you know, a fair amount of the ideas at least originated, I think, you know, with me and batting those around with Dylan. And then Ross came in and really just brought everything to life artistically. So that's kind of how I like to think of the golden trio here.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You should really go next. I feel like I only have.
I should have gone first.
I don't even know our Instagram handles, or so.
Ross, be quiet.
That's okay. We can cut that all out. I'm Dylan. I am the creator of Oddment and Tweak. And Jeanette is a lifelong friend of mine, and Ross is my life partner. And I created Oddment and Tweak kind of as an outlet for creativity. And I like the way that Jeanette jokes about all of our roles in the company, being that if you ask each of us individually who's the most important, we would all say us or me. But it's all true, is because like we share the roles so individually that without any of us, it wouldn't be anymore.
And we all have like a very deep passion in what we do, so I think we all take it very seriously.
Right.
And, yeah.
So I suppose, seeing as y'all have led the witness here, Dylan, I'll ask this to you. How does this all start? How do you go, I'm assuming, from someone who is passionate about the series and a fan to someone who decides, hey, I want to start actually creating merchandise based off of the series?
So I have an artistic background. I minored in photography and graphic design in undergrad, which doesn't sound like that much, but I've always been creative. I have a theater background. I worked in set design. So this was kind of, for me, an outlet after the undergrad years, as a way to kind of continue the creativity after I got out of theater. And I saw that, I was inspired by other pin makers, really. I saw that pins were kind of, I would say making a comeback, but Disney pin traders would argue that they've kind of been back for a couple of decades. And I imagine some people would argue that they haven't really ever gone out of style. But for me, as I started to see an uptick in pin creation and designs that I really admired, I thought, I would love to see, certain designs out in the world. And I'm a creative person. I would like to argue. Maybe I'd like to try my hand at that. And, it seemed like such a loving and welcoming community, which proved to be way more than true.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I dove right in, and the first couple of designs were Halloween themes, Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town. And then it kind of grew from there with Jeanette's help and later Ross's.
So I certainly look, no surprises to the majority of what I imagine my listeners to be. I got to know y'all's work through LeakyCon and the Harry Potter space. That said, as you just mentioned, I do want to give you all the opportunity to talk about the other pins you design, because I know there are other fandoms or non-fandoms that you do operate in, and they are beautiful and deserving of conversation as well. So do you want to quickly walk us through kind of the other spaces y'all play in?
Yeah, Ross, let's talk about Star Wars.
Well, it's really funny because I'm probably the least Harry Potter fan out of the three of us.
Ross,
I wouldn't say
don't
probably.
say these things.
Well, no, it's true. I'm joking. I really like Harry Potter, but definitely not as much as Dylan and Jeanette. And so for me, I get really excited when we talk about other fandoms because there's so many fun things that we can delve into. Foremost being Star Wars. For me, I am, ever since I was a wee lad, a huge Star Wars fan. And I always have been and have a deep love for that fandom. So making that kind of stuff, especially Leia-themed stuff, is huge for me. She's always been a role model for me throughout my life. So Star Wars is a big thing I love to do.
And the way that Jeanette and I are the Harry Potter fans, more of a Harry Potter fans than Ross. Ross is like the foremost Star Wars fan of the group. And I would say probably of everybody I know.
So I just watched the Skywalker movies for the first time. I've never, I saw Rogue One in the theaters one time because I'm not really sure. I was at the Union Square AMC.
That was your first movie?
That was my first Star Wars that I'd seen.
Oh,
I was never, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. Boy, do my friends already kind of crucify me for it every single day. But I just watched all 9 a month ago during pandemic. And I'm hooked now. And I still don't understand 85% of the Star Wars pins I see because I saw the movies once.
There's deep lore. It's you can go crazy to it.
Yeah. And not to put the cart too far before the horse here, but I really do love the Star Wars Chocolate Frog card pins that y'all have designed because, and this is not a shot at any other sort of crossover mashup pin out there, but a lot of times what I see is Ariel in a Hogwarts costume, right? Which is beautiful, and I'm not taking shots. But yeah. What I love is that it's two very what you've done with the Chocolate Frog card pin is it's two very separate and easily recognizable properties, and you're not trying to meld them together. You're just putting them on top of each other and saying this is what it is. And I like that.
I'm glad that you recepted them so well because I was worried that like maybe they wouldn't meld well, they would feel off, or yeah.
I think that Oddment and Tweak as a brand, if you want to get technical, has really branded itself on chocolate frogs, which I am super excited about because we are constantly expanding the amount of chocolate frog merchandise that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fun for us to kind of think of new ways to expand on that universe, and cross over between fandoms. And, we've got tons of other Chocolate Frog items in the works coming that this whole kind of quarantine period we've been focusing on. And I think probably by the time that this podcast is out, and we can reveal here with you first, is that the next series of Chocolate Frog crossover pins is Disney Princesses.
Yes.
So they are in production now, and it's going to be the first the first one is Tiana, because you couldn't do Disney Chocolate Frogs without doing the princess of Chocolate Frogs herself.
Exactly.
So we've got Tiana and Moana and Mulan for right now, but obviously we plan to kind of expand on top of that even more as it is.
And I think what I love so much about the Chocolate Frogs, it's definitely what Oddment and Tweak has become. But I think, Chocolate Frog is something that honors somebody. And I think that it's just really doing justice to the characters that we know and love in really unique ways. And I feel like I have very strong love for the dark Chocolate Frog cards. And I remember, I was watching the movies, of course, were on TV one night. And it was late, and I was watching, and these two were asleep. They wake up to so many messages from me. But, I was thinking out loud, and I was like, I would really love Voldemort to be on a Chocolate Frog card, but, he doesn't belong on a Chocolate Frog card. And but that makes me sad, because I feel like he does belong on one, but in a different way. And then thus the dark Chocolate Frog cards were born. And I think that it just speaks to the unique lens, I think, that Oddment and Tweak has for looking at these characters and really telling their stories, whether that be, within the world or outside of it.
Yeah, I'll tell you personally that I finally managed through one of the recent Big Fat Live sales to get the Bellatrix Chocolate Frog card, and I have not been so excited about a singular pin in a long time.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you. That means a lot.
That was awesome.
That went over so exceedingly well, like beyond my wildest expectations. It was kind of like a surprise drop. The pandemic kind of ruined that drop, so to speak, because I don't know if you know the backstory, which is we originally were planning to drop Bella at Valentine's Day and celebrate in a set with Voldemort.
I forgot about
that. They were put in production to obviously be created in time, and then the pandemic shut down everything, and they didn't come until June. But so it was kind of like, oh, Bella's here, she's LE100 and she's up for sale, and they disappeared so quickly. And I think maybe that was kind of my first kind of feeling like, oh, this is something. And it had been, the business is going to turn 3, or it's technically going to turn 3 years old in a couple of weeks. So I think to kind of just feel like we've hit something just a few months ago, feels really good.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that Bella has done so well, and she wouldn't be on a Chocolate Frog card, I think just really speaks to, okay, well, now we've given her a place to appropriately shine, because she did terrible things, but I think there's also things to be celebrated, and the whole story of love, and it just all kind of goes together in terms of the stories we need to be telling, and it's not the main stories or even the secondary, tertiary stories that need telling. Not that she's not part of that, but what is below the surface. And I think that another area where we particularly have passion for are nuggets that would not necessarily be part of the books or be part of the movies, but would exist in the world. And what does that look like? And I know Dylan loves that sort of thing, which is
we're constantly trying to find those kind of things.
Constantly. Yeah. I love a deep cut or creating things that are in universe, but maybe never talked about, like the Granger dentistry pin.
Yes.
Things of that nature. I love just kind of coming up with something you wouldn't necessarily think of, but when you see it, you go, oh, of course.
That would totally be in universe.
Yeah.
But even if you're not like, of course, because I feel like the most interesting conversations that the three of us have are when we're trying to like really fight for an idea that we want made. And like, you know, the rest of us are like sitting on a panel. Like, show me the receipts, show me the data. Like, okay, like convince me. And I think that is the most
Shark
fun.
Tank for pins.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not that idea immediately gets made, like some of the other ideas might, but you know, we come back to it. And I like that because, you know, you marinate, you learn more as the weeks, the years go on, and you know, okay, well, yeah, let's go. And I think that there's one pin in production that we had talked about. I don't know if we could mention. I don't know.
It's in production right now?
I don't actually know.
I don't even know what's in production either sometimes.
But I think that it's a moving pin. It's one.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's one of, I think, one of the original ideas we had, and Dylan keeps notebooks, and I'm always like, where's the notebooks? And it feels like the ideas are ever recorded. But this one was, and we didn't do it for a couple of years because it just wasn't right, but it was a good idea. And then Ross was inspired a couple of weeks ago and banged it out, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And if we had made it 2 years ago, it wouldn't have looked like this.
No, absolutely not.
So I feel like that process is built in. It's not something that is planned for, but it's just kind of natural.
Yeah, that's the beauty of, oh, sorry, totally cut you off.
No, this is great. Look, this is far better than anything I could ever ask. So by all means.
I think that's the beauty of the process for us too, is that we're constantly growing and learning from everything that we make. So if you look back a couple of years at, you know, some of our first pins and you compare it to kind of the types of pins that we're doing now, it's like a vast difference on how we've learned about how to push the boundaries of these tiny works of art and what we can do with them. And so even some pins in the beginning that, like the Weasley clock, that it's probably our top pin ever created.
Yeah.
The one that we have like the most requests for it to come back. But if you look at Weasley clock 1.0 and kind of like 1.5, it's very elementary in its design. Mm-hmm. And so again, a sneak peek here for the Pin Pod is that Weasley Clock 2.0 is in production and will be out this fall, hopefully maybe by the time this podcast premieres. And
it's so much prettier. Like, me as an artist, like, I've really grown with like my skill of designing in a digital format, because I've been an artist all my life, but doing digital art is really difficult for me, and learning how to really do that. But going back and being able to remaster a pin like that and take those skills that I've really developed is really exciting and fun, just to see them back to back. Like, wow, like this is like so much better than night and day.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think the Weasley clock is actually a really good example of what you're talking about, Dylan, of the pins that you always think about visualizing when you read, but you don't necessarily go all the way, right? Like, for instance, you know, Amy over at Witherwings Wares recently released her Luna ceiling with all of the friends. And I have read that paragraph so many times, and I've never thought about, well, what does this actually look like? And so seeing it was like, oh, wow. And I think the same thing can be easily said about the Weasley clock. Like, you know, that clock comes up so many times throughout the series. And so I've thought about it, but I've never actually thought about what does this look like kind of, you know, in real life. And take one look at Amy's live sales, and I can't imagine what y'all's DMs are like. That clock is so popular.
Yeah. We take a lot of cues from the movie universe, just because I feel as though
it's so visual.
Right. And that's what people most recognize. And I almost feel that that's what people kind of want to see. But we love to kind of, you know, make it like book perfect, if you will. Like, if there's something from the movies that we feel wasn't quite right or is not quite the canon that we believe it to be, we always love to take those kind of, I call them creative liberties, but the choices have already been made for us in the books.
So I'm really curious about this question because it's a fairly straightforward question when I ask it to one person. But given that there are three of y'all, I'm curious, what is your creative process? Like, how do you go from like, hey, I have an idea, all the way to, hey, this is a pin that we're selling, come buy it?
Well, I'll give you a different answer.
Okay.
Dylan, you could go. You could take it. But wait, before we answer this question, I do just quickly want to go back to when you were talking about the original pins, because I feel like we don't potentially give them enough credit because we see how far we've come, for lack of a better term. But I think we've just evolved. I don't think that it's a matter of we were here and now we're so much further ahead. I think it's just a different style. And, we're learning what works well, as Rossi was mentioning, what works well in a digital medium. Well, pins are small. Like, how do we convey all this expression and meaning in this tiny little space? And to get the detail is something that, Ross is a master of. But I was thinking about this before the podcast, kind of just like reflect. I like to be prepared, but I was like thinking about, what we could potentially talk about. And it's happening to me. I'm getting a little choked up. Like, I have a lot of emotion for those pins from the beginning. I'm going to cry. But I think that it really helped our friendship grow.
Yeah.
You can talk.
No, it did help our friendship grow, I think, because like I said, Jeanette and I are lifelong friends, but you get to a point where undergrad is done, and Jeanette and I went to college together too. And
grammar school, we were forgetting about that. Right.
Grammar school, not high school. She went to an all girls school. I went to an all boys school, but then we came back together in college, and we were a very tight-knit group of friends. But, after that, you get older and you see each other less. And so this has brought us certainly back together. And we've spoken, we're basically, business partners now. So naturally we speak every day, but it's Jeanette that we speak to basically first thing in the morning and right before we go to bed, every day, pandemic.
I'm going to bed. I have to go. Text these ideas to me.
Yeah. But I always say, without Jeanette, I would be nothing, because she's always pushed me the furthest that I can possibly go. It's never enough for Jeanette, and that is the best possible thing. I could never say that in a negative way.
It can be difficult times, but it really pushes us to a whole other level that we couldn't get to.
She's pushed me my entire life to be the best possible version of myself. And so when it came time to design those first Harry Potter pins, past the Halloween pins, it was her who believed in me, who pushed me to do them, who said, this is a great idea. These are going to be awesome. Always is the biggest cheerleader for us. Basically tells me never to doubt myself. And I think that's the best thing to have in a partner. And now I realize that was not the question at all.
No, I know.
Well, I took it back, and then I cried, and then we went somewhere else. But I do want to say that Dylan has always been, and listen, this is not something Dylan has not told me before. It's always a credit where kind of credit is due, and I give him that same credit right back. But Dylan has always been very entrepreneurial focused, and this was not the first business that he started, and certainly not the first thing he's been passionate about. But so there's something different about this, and with the other things in the past that he had tried his hand in, they were all pretty successful, but there wasn't that spark, at least not that continued spark. And here I sort of saw something different. And so when, and I'm sure, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but, those original Halloween, Hocus Pocus, Halloween Town pins didn't take off right away. Now they're sold out. But at first it was slow going. And sometimes, we think, is this not the right move? Should we try something else? And I was like, well, what else are we really passionate about? Harry Potter. Let's see where we could grow our imagination and something we've always had a passion for into a different type of passion. And I think that's taken us really far in these past 3 years. So.
And you talk about the creative process to kind of go back to that, which basically we're kind of one huge brain, the three of us.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a great way to put it.
That's a great way to describe it.
make up one brain, because Jeanette, I would say most of the time it goes a little something like Jeanette has this idea. Sometimes it's a little bit crazy. We've got to rein her in. And then I kind of conceptualize that and figure out a way for it to become a reality. And Ross is the one that makes that concept come to life. And naturally that it's different with everything. There's a lot of give and take, and we share all of the responsibilities. Sometimes I'm the one drawing things, or Ross is the one that says, oh, I have this great idea, and then he mostly just whips it up really fast and surprises us with what it is.
I love to do that. That's my favorite thing to do.
He's like, oh, I have a surprise for you. You'll see.
Yeah, I lord it over them.
No. I said, I don't like when you don't tell me things. Like, I need to be involved. And he's like, no, you'll see it at the end of the day when it's done. And I'm like,
exactly.
Jeanette, I'm actually really glad that you brought up how much this means to you, and how much, this relationship with Dylan and Ross has meant to you, both as a business person, but also just as a human. Because I want to talk now about community, and I want to talk about community in a couple different ways. So the first I want to talk about is kind of the relationship that you've developed with your customers. Because, one of the first things I noticed when looking through your shop and your Instagram, and don't worry, we'll plug all those at the end, is y'all designed a pin of the three of you.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is evident from the first second of talking to you is not a decision built out of ego, like, hey, look at us, but I think really speaks to A, the bond that the three of you have, but B, I think the relationship you really try to develop with your customers. So I'm curious if y'all want to speak to that at all.
So the funny thing is that those pins were designed last holiday season. The pin that's the three of us was created as a Christmas card or a holiday card that we sent out to
our personal family.
Well, actually, yeah, we gave some to our family. There's a second wreath that was made that.
Oh, I forgot there's two variants of this.
Oh, I'm glad you forgot about that one. That makes me happy.
The second wreath is just of Ross and I that we sent out as our family holiday card to our family and friends.
I would send Jeanette to my family too, though.
we did give the wreaths that had the three of us to our families as well.
Their family is my family. I'm on the phone with Dylan's mother probably just as often as he is.
Yeah, definitely.
And my dad will be like, "Oh, I love Jeanette on the Instagram live video."
Shout out to Steve Wood.
Yeah.
Ross's dad calls us just to say how great of a job Jeanette does on the Instagram lives.
Has he met you in person ever?
Yeah, a couple
of times.
Okay. You're very offended.
So anyway, the wreath pin with the three of us was created as a holiday card that we were sending to other maker friends or clients last holiday season. We had a few left over that customers saw other makers post in their stories. And they were like, that is amazing. Like, do you have any of those? Are you going to sell those? And I felt, honestly,
surprised.
I was a little bit insecure about putting a pin with my face on it or our faces out there for people to buy. But I mean, we also, we designed them to be kind of in likeness to the trio from the series, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, which I feel like we kind of embody 100%. Quite well.
Oh, absolutely. Hate players.
So I think that maybe people also could have felt like, oh, that's Harry, Ron, and Hermione, kind of.
Yeah, maybe.
and like, if you're just looking at it really quickly on your pin board, you would just think that's the trio in the wreath. So that's kind of how
And so much so that I've convinced Dylan to make it not our logo, but it's our Instagram logo. Yeah. It's our picture. So I feel like after it was so widely embraced by the community, I was like, let's make this our face. Let's make it more personal, because, in terms of speaking with the community, I think Dylan has definitely been the face of that. And he has done it since the beginning. Like, he's the one who's answering Instagram messages, your comments, your photos. He's the one you're interacting with. And I haven't really gotten that involved until the Wondrous Wizarding weekend when I did my Instagram live. And now I'm like making me the star. No, I'm totally kidding.
So I'm ready for my close-up.
putting, and now I'm following customers are following me, and they're not customers, they're friends, they're people. And it's just really interesting to see. And like, all the time I'm discovering new pin accounts and new ideas. And I think that, being inspired by this community is not just a community of makers, it's a community of fans and people who, some of the best ideas come from when we're like, what do you want to see? And see, what people post. Oh, yes, let's do this.
To that end, I'm curious, I think the online community, absolutely. So I don't want to exclude that from the question, but events like LeakyCon or any of the conventions that happen across the country, what do those mean to y'all, both as an opportunity to engage with friends? Let's not call them customers, let's call them friends, because I'm a customer. I hope I'm a friend by the end of this. But also,
you're already a friend, Stephen.
but also, the other pin makers and designers out there. Like, what does this community mean to y'all as an opportunity to engage both with friends, customers, but also the other fellow creators?
I think that. You can answer the question, but I think you're not going to give yourself enough credit. But the first event was Patches and Pins Expo. What year was that?
2018.
2018. And Dylan, bit the bullet and was like, I'm going to participate in this. And it was, I know it was a really scary decision for you, and you didn't know what to expect, both from either side, from the consumer side, from the maker side. And I think I was away for work for that particular.
I think so, yeah.
And so I wasn't able to make it. And all I remember is, that really selling Dylan on really continuing with this, and not only continuing with it, but growing it. And he came out with so many different ideas and so many different ways to interact. And I think that was really the initial turning point of this being a hobby to this being a business.
Yeah, I think that expo was invaluable because I felt we had just the Halloween pins at that point. Patches and Pins Expo was announced, and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I've got to just go all in for this expo, because it was, as far as I know, it's really the only pin specific event on the East Coast. And even the like Potter events, LeakyCon is the premier Potter event, you would say. And that is so very rarely in our neck of the woods in the Northeast. So this was, Patches and Pins was an expo I could drive to. And I thought, like I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go all in. So that's when the Potter pins were created. We spent like a whole week coming up with and creating that first batch of pins. And I was so concerned that it wouldn't be well received. But it really was. And to meet people who were so enthusiastic about them and so passionate about them, who like had no idea who we are, was just so wonderful. And even growing from there, that was in April. I was like, well, should we go to LeakyCon? Like, should we just apply for that? We'll never get in. And because I had no idea how it worked at that point. And so we applied for LeakyCon in April. And it was in August. Was it in August of that year?
It was August in Dallas.
Yes.
Yeah.
August. Oh, you were?
Oh.
I was. So this is my tie-in. Inevitably, anyone who has been to LeakyCon or has been around Brandy, Simply Potter Girl, at any of these events has seen me, because I'm the person that's carrying all of Brandy and Chelsea's bags and phones and keys and everything, because they're Leghorn couches and Luna and lions and all the.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So we absolutely have seen them, and those costumes were epic. I have pictures of them. So, like LeakyCon, it was crazy. We got accepted 5 weeks before.
Oh my gosh.
It was, we were set to fly out. And I had forgotten about that I had even applied to go at that point. And they were like, yeah, you're accepted. I was like, we had like no inventory. I quickly reached out to my manufacturer and was like, could we get like 50,000 pins for
He's not joking.
No, there wasn't actually. But I mean, and then to like throw those in like 4
suitcases.
Giant overweight suitcases.
That was a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, but it's all worth it at the end of the day when you meet that community at the con.
Absolutely.
I think is really the whole point of this long-winded story. Like, there's nothing like meeting and hanging out with the community who really, like you said, has become our friends. It like still gives me chills to feel, or like when people come up to us and be like, oh my God, I've been following you, or like, I know who you are, I have all of your pins, like that like will never get old. And like, I don't know, it still feels weird, like to feel like somebody wants what we create.
I'll tell you what's really bizarre is we're talking about LeakyCon in Dallas. That was my first Harry Potter convention. I'd gone to, I only entered the fan world January of 2018 at Celebration of Harry Potter down at Universal. But anywho, this is all to say I did my research. I knew that the patches and pins thing was in 2018 because I came prepared to this interview. But one of the things that completely slipped my mind, and I was telling Jeanette off mic, I'm in the process of moving all of my Harry Potter stuff is in boxes right now. And it's been in boxes for a while because I've been here for a while. That's all to say that I have a very wonderful, is felt the word we're using? I don't know. Quidditch World Cup pennant that I purchased at LeakyCon 2018, and I'm realizing right now that was from y'all.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That pennant was quite popular that year because
that's right.
Stanislav Janevsky, the character who plays Victor Crumb, was at signing, and a bunch of people came to buy the pennant and then have it signed by him.
Yeah, it was like perfect fodder for an autograph.
And then Dylan was like, Jeanette, you go online. Here's the money. Go meet him and get one signed for us. And I was like...
Did you get one? I don't remember that.
Yeah, she went and got 2, one for her and one for us.
Oh my God.
But I mean, yeah, and that pennant, I mean, you forgot about it. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
It's long sold out. Like, that was such a labor of love, that pennant. I was like so excited about creating it at the time. And we worked really closely with Oxford Pennant, which is like this amazing handcrafted pennant shop in Buffalo. And they are wonderful, and they work with you really on every detail to make it feel like exactly what you want it to be.
It was our first non-pin merchandise.
Yeah, I was really nervous about that too.
Yeah.
Well, I will be reaching out to the New York State Small Business Association for any and all money for bringing on a New York small business, but also getting a plug-in for Oxford Pennant. They can be the official sponsor of this episode. Thank you.
Yeah.
2 more questions because y'all have been so good with your time, and I appreciate it. The first is a softball. What do we have to look forward to for the rest of the year? And I know there's a lot of secret stuff, so I'm fine not getting specifics. But generally speaking, what can people expect from Oddment and Tweak as we progress towards the winter?
There's so much going on. Right now, it's just like a flurry of things going on.
It's been probably 6 months of quarantine of nonstop work. So there's tons in production. We've got a whole Halloween line coming. Lots of Nightmare Before Christmas. Lots of other Hocus Pocus pins.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And we could tell you also exclusively it's going to be Hocus Pocus Chocolate Frog crossovers. And is there some other stuff for Halloween that I'm forgetting?
Well, something that I'm just going to say it. I like to spill lots of secrets, and then Dylan texts me on this, and I was like, what are you doing? You're telling me everything. But something that we have recently released is a mini frog series. So going along with, of course, the Chocolate Frog love over here. And we had released on the grid a chocolate series because, of course, chocolate frogs. Let's make them in all sorts of flavors of chocolate. But there is multiple, dare I say, Halloween versions of those coming out. So that's something to look forward to, and kind of expanding that even further to other holidays or other themes, etc. So things to look forward to there.
and naturally we have a whole Christmas line or holiday line coming out.
That's what I'm working on constantly.
Yeah, that's kind of like being ramped up and just being finished up for the holidays. But really expanding on the Chocolate Frog line with the mini frogs, which, as you know, oh yeah, of course. And the ITA bag, which really, I mean, that was so fun to work on. I think that I probably worked nonstop for like 6 weeks.
Oh man, that was a very stressful period because every night he was dealing with, the factory and designers and not designers, but the factories who were working on the bag, and they are, a lot of them are overseas. And so at night, he's trying to communicate with them while during the day, and he's trying to get as many questions answered as possible, but then he's also tired and it's late and he's stressing out about it.
I think I probably worked like nonstop for all those weeks, just like trying to get that bag made. And it's so, I think that like for me was like beyond anything that I could have dreamed of it looking like, to see something. And I mean, like I and don't want to toot my own horn here, but I almost worked on that exclusively for so long and for so many hours that it felt so amazing to see that prototype when it came, and then to have the community like be so wild about it.
I think it sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it sort of stemmed from the Wondrous Wizard weekend, because prior to that, there was a flurry of different ideas. And, Dylan mentions the pennant as our first non-pin item. And I think since then, we've had patches, we've had stickers, we've had a couple of other things. But for the Wondrous Wizarding weekend, we got into those shakers, and I think it just really opened the imagination. And, this is one of those ideas where Dylan had it, he took it, it ran, and it was super successful, versus something that we might sit on for years, like the other item that I had mentioned. But yeah, you were really passionate about that. It was really exciting to see. And because of that passion, I feel like, we gave you advice when you asked for it, but I feel like Rusty and I were just like, okay, you do it, because if you're this passionate, it's going to look great. And of course it does. So I actually have the only prototype here at the house.
She has it now. She's never giving it back.
I'm never giving it back. I've said that. I said, this is it. And Don's like, no more coming, right? It's like, oh, I'm attached to this one. But I think you can expect, I'm dropping all the secrets, guys. I think you can expect some more. No, we can't expect anything else? Okay.
I don't know. I think they'll just have to wait and see on that one. But to that end, we're really constantly trying to push the boundaries of the type of products that we offer, just because we want to be able to appeal to most of the community, or as many people in the community that we can, because we, like we said, they become our friends. We want to know what it is that they're looking for, and we want to be able to offer that to them. So it really, I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
This also opens the door to a whole new world of possibilities, because it really inspired me. Like once Dylan was talking about this, I'm like, oh, we can do something more than pins? And Dylan's like, yes, go think. So
the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, and I think obviously the bag is larger scale, and there's a lot of things we could do with that. But even on the other end, so the mini frogs, I was like, oh, we can even think smaller scale. And I think that, in terms of things that are in the world, but sort of outside of it, and there's creative liberties to be had, but still can seem very familiar. I think that this is a really good example of what that looks like.
So the very last question that I have for y'all, and seriously, I cannot thank you enough. I'll go on a little tangent here before I get to the last question, because why not? One of the biggest things I really wanted to illustrate with each and every one of the people I bring on this podcast is that, y'all are doing this because you're passionate about it. Yes, of course, it helps that you're making money, and I assume not losing money, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. But it's not just like a transactional, hey, purchase here, it's shipped, congrats, right? There's really, years worth of time and effort and care and relationship building and collaborating. And I hope the listeners get what I got out of this conversation, which is, from the jump, that's so evident, right? Like the three of y'all truly are your own golden trio, and this work is just infused with passion and care. So I really can't thank y'all enough. But the question, because I said I was going to ask one more, is what advice would any of y'all have for people out there who were thinking about getting into the world of pin designing and creating?
I think your lead into that kind of hits it on the head. Like, you have to be passionate for it. And if you're passionate about it, other people will be passionate about it. And, that's where Dylan started. He started with what he was passionate for. And that was these Halloween Hocus Pocus pins. It was timely. It was just something he loved to do. And look, he teased the Hocus Pocus chocolate frogs. And it's like, look at the iteration of where that came from this humble beginning where it's like, does people even want this, to it being sold out, to it, morphing into something else that's now encompassed this brand. So I think that follow your passion, because you can't go wrong. And if you design a couple of things and it ends up just being for you. I know, J.K. Rowling is a touchy subject, but something that she had said about the books was, I would have done all 7 even if nobody bought it, because I had to do it for me. So you have to do it for you first. And I think that was the advice that I would give.
I think that honestly says it perfectly. And for us, what we've talked about so much in this past hour or so is the community, of the customers that have become our friends, and we love being able to see them. Wondrous Wizard Weekend was amazing to be able to connect with everybody, especially during the pandemic. And it was a way to bring people together that would have not even been able to make LeakyCon would it have been a thing. So we're constantly trying to find ways to bring the community together, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention other makers who have become our family at this point, like Stina and Nikki, that's Laser Brain Patch Co. and Sunset Road Co. John at the Pin Studio, Cynthia, Poppins Collectibles, Amelia, this huge family. And it's them too that continue to push us to create the best possible products, because to have a group of friends who will so openly look at your work and go, you need to push that a little bit more, or I think if you just add this, it could be like really amazing.
Or even like, I love that idea, but here's how you can take it further. Yeah.
Right. So, it's a lot of it for us is not just collaboration amongst the three of us, but collaboration amongst the greater pin making community.
Because there's experience there, and collectively, like how many years of experience is this? And, yes, we're all part of this one community, but everybody also has their own kind of unique followers and their own unique vibe and brand. And I think just knowing what appeals to different people, not that you're creating the same things, but creating, just similar concepts or going off of an idea that works, and then how can we extend this? And I think that's something that we're, particularly interested in, is expanding beyond, of course, we're always going to be pins, but, where else can people find use, find joy for these types of ideas and products?
Right. And then, of course, for us, is always about kind of pushing it to be original or unique. Like we never want to do something that you've seen before. We don't want you to look at our products and go, oh, all right, well, there are a lot of those.
Yeah, I've seen that done before.
So we're trying to always push the limits of what we can create.
I mean, even within our own company, like you had said, like things have morphed significantly. So I feel like, we're trying to also constantly challenge ourselves internally. And I think, that is something that drives us as well.
And we, it's not lost on me, being back in grad school at the moment. And I'm back for the arts. I'm studying museum studies, and I created an exhibition around pins. In case you didn't know how passionate I was about pins, and they really are these miniature, accessible works of art. That people just collect en masse to show their love for the artist, for the fandom, for the community. And I think that is just the best part of it.
And it's true talking pieces. And I think, kind of harking back to one of your other questions about, the community at the cons, one of the main things that we're talking about is, what are you wearing? How does this identify with who you are as a person? Like, why this? And, I think that those conversations just really, spur friendships, and the community is an entire testament to that, because we're talking about what we love, and that brings people together.
Right. You're just the regular Joan Rivers of the
yeah.
Who are you wearing?
Who are you wearing?
Talk to me about it. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do that at Sleepy Con. That's going to be my little gimmick. I told everybody I'm going to wear, so I should have done it here, but I guess I was thinking it was more of a verbal thing versus a visual thing. But my thing now is going to always to be wearing a headdress of sorts. So I started with the bee antenna crown. And then when I was showing off the bag, I love, as I have mentioned, I love to tease stuff that Dylan doesn't give me permission to tease. So I wore my Nightmare Before Christmas Disney ears. I was asking people to tell me what they thought was coming next based on so I should have done something for this evening. But let me tell you, I'm already planning it out for further lives for the holidays. I'm thinking what my look will be. But it all comes down to that. Like, how are you visually expressing yourself, and how can I use that as a way to connect with you? And it's been super successful for us, both as individual people, as a company, and I think that the community would probably agree.
And if people want to see more of y'all's artwork, keep up to date with all of the fun things that Jeanette has told us and shared with us,
DM me, I'll spill all the secrets.
She's like the Bush's bean dog.
I am. Oh my gosh. Oh yes. You know what's so funny? Actually, I've been seeing the Bush's Beans commercial often on TV. Not that I really watch it, but I watch Law and Order, and so anyway, it's called Roll That Magical Bean Footage. I'm like, that should be line for Stina. Roll that magical bean footage. And I think of her every time I see it, and it's always late, so I never text, because I'm like, nobody cares about this. But now I'm plugging it on with this audience. So yeah, roll that magical bean. So roll that magical chocolate frog footage.
So, Jeanette, I was trying to line up a really nice, easy plug for Oddment and Tweak to end the episode, and we got into DMing you, Bush's Beans.
And this is our creative process. It starts in one crazy area, and then I talk about it, and then Dylan and Ross rationalize it, and then it's most of the time made a reality. But yeah, roll that magical chocolate card footage.
So if you want to find out more about what's coming up, you can find us on Instagram at Oddment and Tweak. Maybe I should do that again. If you want.
You're Harry into the Flu Network.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to find out more about what's coming up, you can find us at Oddment and Tweak on Instagram, or visit our website at oddmentandtweak.bigcartel.com.
Roll that magical chocolate card footage.
That's it for today's episode of the Pin Pod. As a reminder, if you liked what you heard, please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review for the Pin Pod on your podcast platform of choice. You can join our community and hear about all the upcoming pin releases by following us on Instagram at The Pin Pod. If you'd like to be featured on the podcast, please send us a DM on Instagram or email us at thepinpod@gmail.com. Until next week, I'm Steven. Thanks for listening to The Pin Pod.
Collect them if you wanna, starstruck or in
The Pin Pod is a Mouse and Bolt media podcast, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Stephen Hatter. The Pin Pod theme song was composed and performed by Jordan Jackson. If you're interested in learning more about Jordan or having him score music for you, you can find him on Instagram at Specs and Things. The Pin Pod logo was designed by Katie AI. If you're interested in any branding, graphic design, or web design work, you can find Katie on Instagram at The Harry Potter Fan.
The Pin Podcast where we talk about pins. It's the Pin Pod.